This episode is brought to you by Gino's East, LA. Gino's East is one of Chicago's most famous deep dish pizza places. They've been open since 1966, and there are still some people who don't realize Gino's East is here in LA now too. And let me tell you, it feels like you're in Chicago when you're in there. I'm in there most every Friday for happy hour, and it feels like home. Home for us Chicagoans, and a friendly place for people who have never experienced Chicago to get a real feel and real taste for what it is that so many people rave about. I always have a difficult time deciding what to order at Gino's because there's so much great stuff on the menu. My go-to is probably the tavern pizza, cheese and sausage. But when I see someone next to me eating the deep dish, my mouth starts to water. Then I see the Italian beef with giardiniera, and I want to snatch it from the waiter's tray. Every friend I take there never leaves without feeling like they just experienced a meal in Chicago. They can't wait for me to invite them back, and I just tell them they can go there without me. Gino's East of Chicago in Los Angeles was named Best Pizza in the Southland by the LA Times readers 2 years in a row. There's half-price bottles of wine on Mondays and Tuesdays, lunch special every weekday, personal-sized 7-inch deep dish salad and a pop for $12.95. Italian beef, fries, and a pop for $12.95. That's pretty good. It's more than just a Chicago restaurant. It's one of the best restaurants in LA. Check out the friendly confines of Gino's East LA today on the corner of Coldwater Canyon and Riverside Drive, just off the 101. See you there on Friday sometime. Sit back and relax. It's time for peanuts, popcorn, and Cracker Jacks. Hey, how's it going? I'm your host, Jeff Santo, and I'm here with my wife, Christy.
Hello. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter. How
I know
about
this comes out later, but for us right now, it's Easter.
We're taping on Easter, and special day. What goes through your mind when you think of Easter?
Well, thinking about Easter right now as we're doing this podcast, and baseball season's beginning, it's kind of like a rebirth.
Yeah, right.
Light from darkness.
What darkness?
The winter without baseball.
Right. Yeah, I look at, like, when you talk about a rebirth, if you really, reflect on it, the older you get, you should reflect on it. It's kind of like, I always think you should be looking to change, always, like, restart, right?
Yeah, definitely. Continuously evolve.
Yeah.
Human beings were made of 80% water or something like that.
Okay. All right, I guess so.
Water
right?
has many forms, so
all right. Okay, I look at that a little differently. I think sometimes when you go into the past, your life, or a special season, baseball season, because we got a special guest today from a special baseball season, and you kind of look back at it and go, what was that season like to the person on the field, right? That's kind of like a rebirth in your heart and mind.
So you're saying looking back is a rebirth? That makes no sense.
Well, yeah, it does. If you look at a situation and now there's a rebirth in how you look at it, meaning like now you've had time away from it, right?
Oh, that's interesting.
And you can sit there and go, this is what this season was about for me, or, I do that with the 69 season at times, with what we've gone through and what was birthed out of that. That was good to look at that season in a positive way. So our guest today is one of my favorite ball players I got to know. Just
such a cool guy.
Cool guy.
Such a cool
Can't
guy.
wait. And he played for a outstanding team that got very close. So can't wait for you to hear our conversation. It's pretty special on Easter here.
Enjoy.
This podcast is brought to you by Bernie's Tap and Grill. It's family-owned and operated since 1954. Located across from Wrigley Field on Clark and Waveland. My dad hit a few home runs on the Waveland Avenue, and Bernie's was my dad's favorite place to go. It's got delicious food, 4 full-service bars, an awesome beer garden, a sidewalk patio cafe, and a cool upstairs area. It's the place I've always met my friends at before and after games. Go on by and tell Linda Dillman Jeff Santos sent you. Bernie's Tap and Grill, where you go when you go to Wrigley. My special guest today is the greatest center fielder to ever play for the Chicago Cubs. I could only imagine if he was on the 69 Cubs. But we were fortunate to get him in a trade just before the 84 season. And when this guy got here, the Cubs were ready to win, 15 years after the 69 collapse. They called him and Rhino the Daily Double. He could hit, he could steal bases, he could take his walks, and he covered center field like an eagle with superior tracking ability. The baseball was his prey. He caught everything. For a moment in time, the Cubs had one of the best commanding the outfield. A Gold Glover and a wonderful human being, this man could have played in any era of baseball. So great to have him on the show. Bob Dernier, welcome.
Well, those are very kind words, Jeff. Glad to be aboard.
Oh, man, so good to talk to you. It's the 40-year anniversary of the 1984 Cubs. What does that mean to you?
I know. I was reflecting in more than one direction, but it was four days ago and 40 years that I got traded, right? And it was March 27th, and Sarge was the leader of that flight, if you will, from Florida over to Phoenix. And I'll never forget his words were, "Listen, I'm going to tell you something right now. We're not playing that lovable loser stuff. We're flying over here expecting to win. So get that straight." And so, I didn't think any other way anyway. It was just reaffirming kind of where we had came out of, Philly, and we'd been to a couple World Series and threatened to win, year after year, and even coming through the minor leagues, we expected to win. And in order to make that climb, you had to bring something special to the table on that roster over there back in those years. So when I came over, I rejoined, as you know, Rhino, not least of which, and several other, 6 other teammates, including Dickie Knowles, Warren Brewstar, Dick Ruthven, Moreland, me, Sarge, Rhino, and Boa. We were all kind of coming out of that. And so knowing who we were joining, there was a bunch of winners there, Jeff.
Yeah, I got to say, man, that trade, too, you and Gary Matthews for, I think, Bill Campbell and Mike Diaz. Not to put anything against those guys, but wow, bringing you 2 guys in. And then with the team that they had already, a lot of other Phillies, that was Dallas Green's work, right? He got you guys at the last moment.
Boy, you took the words right out of my mouth, because the 8th and most important part of that group that came over from Philly, Dallas was the orchestrator. He was the band leader, so to speak, and he made all the right moves at the right times, but he put pressure on Philly. And in my particular case, we had such a crowd in the outfield. We had 8 outfielders, and 6 of us at least were everyday players. Either we were going to play every day, or we were kind of, it was questionable, our value on the club. So, once they decided, and they didn't think I could hit, I still had that echo, and I loved that challenge, that the coaches over there had kind of resigned to the fact that I wasn't going to hit enough in the big leagues, and that was fine with me. I had a long line of people that didn't think I was good enough throughout my whole journey.
Wow.
So, I took that as like a compliment in a way, like, okay, well, what do you get a load of me? And so that's how I looked at it, that little bit of cockiness and also confidence in my teammates. I knew rejoining Rhino was going to be huge for me, Jeff.
Yeah. And then you had Moreland, a former Philly too. And you guys were good with you got to the World Series with the Orioles in '83. They beat you. But it was just amazing that team that they put together in '84. In '83, I looked, they were 20 games under 500. And then you turn it around and you guys are 30 games over 500. That's an amazing turnaround in one season. Right.
Yeah, man, it was truly a good mix. And when you think back, we had Boa, Ron Say, and Sarge as the veteran guys that had been through all the playoffs and World Series, and they this was nothing new to them. Me and Durham and Jody, Rhino, Moreland, others. We were kind of medium-aged guys. We'd been around a little while, we had some experience, and that mix it was a real good mix because it was, we weren't old, we weren't young. And then the key was, Dallas pulling those strings again and adding pitching when we needed it. Right. And, Eckersley and the big redhead Sutcliffe really solidified things, no doubt.
Yeah. Did you feel it right away? Like when you came over, I mean, you're coming over in the spring training time. Did you feel it right away? Did you know, like, okay, I got the center field position. This team's going to rock and roll. Did you feel that?
Well, one of the things that happened in the press back then I was reminded that when we got traded, I think Bob Verdi and of course Fred Mitchell and others were part of that press crew. And the word was that some article came out, and I guess Matthews got ear on it. And Mel Hall, who was part of the team, had visions of playing every day, and we all had those aspirations. And I guess he said something in the press that about me coming over and I'm going to play every day. Now he's going to be playing part time, and him and Moreland were going to platoon and right. Well, Mel said, "Well, I don't think Bobby can fill my shoes." And so Sarge, he kind of echoed that to me and said, "Well, you got to do something about that." And I said, "Well, what do you want me to do? I mean, I'm not that kind of, I'm not a confrontational guy or anything like that."
Right.
And so I thought, my imagination and, I have that comic touch, as you know, and I don't mind lightening it up. And so I walked over to Mel. I'd never met him. I in the locker room there in Mesa, and I said, "Hey, Mel, I'm Bobby Dernier, and nice to meet you. And by the way, what size shoes do you wear?" And I don't really think he got the joke right away. You know what I mean? But that was my thinking, was that, look, we're teammates, and
right.
And, I'm not really here to fill anybody's shoes, but, I'm here to do a job. And I looked at it like we're all individuals, and I brought something to the table that was different than what Mel brought or anybody else. And everybody had that individual contribution. And I think that's part of the reason we had such a really good team, was if you took one guy off that team, and I don't care, pitcher, player, you don't know anything about the '84 Chicago Cubs. It took everybody doing what they did to make us who we were, no doubt.
Yeah, no doubt. And you guys, because, I was in college then, so you guys became our team, So I was just focused. I don't know when you guys started, like, hey, we got a good team here. How did you guys do in April out of the box, out of the gate?
We got out of the box. I think we started on the coast, and we came back 500, I think, or maybe one game above. We were either 4-3 or 3-3, and then we opened up at Wrigley and beat Doc Gooden on opening day. And out of the gate, everybody knew you had you had to beat the Cardinals, right, and the Phillies.
Right.
They were the two teams, and the Mets were coming, but as we'd learned later that year. But we all kind of knew, and we got it handed to us in the first half a little bit. Philly beat us up, but we handled the Cardinals and the Mets. And so, and of course, Montreal was still a good club, and Pittsburgh was kind of they were still young, and they had some older players. They had kind of their mix wasn't real good that year. But so once we got to the All-Star to May, I'll say, and they traded Buckner to Boston for Eck. And then right then we kind of knew, hey, and that could come from winning,
Yeah.
In Boston. And of course, Sut came in June, and that was really the deal. And of course, he came from L.A. and then through Cleveland. And he was, he grew up with the winning environment in L.A. So with all that we had, and then we added those guys, I think we were offensively already in we were the best team in the National League offensively. We could score runs, but if we could, if we could keep them from scoring more, then we were going to win a lot of games. And Dallas, he really knew how to pick them. And, Sut has issues in L.A. and, Eck was kind of a free spirit. And we had a lot of personality and gamer kind of stuff, not unlike that 69 team. We related to them in that way, not least of all your dad, let me tell you.
Yeah, and that's the thing, that the psychology of a team, because that 84 season, everything seemed to click just as the 69 season too for my dad and his guys. But those guys built up from 4 years. You guys came in and then boom, it was like a magic potion, the last two. And then you throw in Sut, you and you and Sarge, and then Sutcliffe and Eckersley, I was like, bam. You look at that team now, and everyone's, I'm like, hey, put that team against the '69 Cubs. That's going to be a good series, right? I mean,
well, you can compare, and there's no, and Cub fans tell me this. I hear this all the time, even still today. They'll compare the '69, the '84, and the 2016 teams,
right?
And pound for pound, and Jody Davis and I challenged Joe Madden with this at an event up at Club 400 a couple of years ago, and it was really fun. And because Joe's real playful, as you know.
Right.
And so we narrowed it down, though. We said, okay, Mr. Madden, sir, we want you to have a mock draft. It's your team, and you have only to pick from the 16 and the 84 rosters. So I'll start it off with me and Dexter. Who do you got? And he said, well, I'll take Bobby Fowler. And I said, okay, I get it. I'm hip to that. That's good with that. Good enough for me. And then I said, okay, you got Montero, Ross, and Contreras, or you got Jody. Who you got? Well, the crowd starts, chanting, Jody.
Right.
So, and if you keep going on down the roster, yeah, we all are going to take Rhino, right? And probably Rizzo and Bryant and maybe Russell over Boa. But, the outfield, Sarge and Moreland. And it was, back then you had, I think, there was a bit of a platoon going on in left maybe, but Zobrist was out there. Maybe Schwarber was visiting. Yep. And then in right, you had Hayward, who was, in my opinion, the best defensive outfielder I've watched play after I was retired. And then, so me and Dexter. So you had that's a tough decision to make when you break it down.
Oh yeah.
As it would be when you compare that '69 team with either one of our teams. So that's kind of the beauty of the whole generational Cub thing, and being, a note of interest in that history is truly an honor, Jeff. I can tell you that. So I reflect on it all the time.
No doubt. And then seeing all you guys together at Randy's camps, that was great. Just the mix of the generations of these teams and how you guys all got along so well, right? I mean,
yeah. And with those '69 guys who basically adopted us as little brothers or nephews, because they wanted us to win and kind of take the monkey off.
Yep.
And then, of course, the 16 team took the big gorilla off, 108 years, and thank goodness for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Without.
But I tell you, the fans need to know, when I came over, one of the first memories I have in the early part, April or May, I think it was May, and I'd met Billy, and Ernie was around a little bit. Of course, your dad, Hundley, and Beckert and others, and Fergie, of course. But your dad, I will never forget how he came up and introduced himself. Now, I had met him in '82, and he didn't remember. I was with Billy, and just briefly got to, hey, nice to meet you. But anyway, so he come, hey, Ron Santo, Bobby, nice to meet you, right? Blah, blah, blah. And he said, hey, I just got to tell you, I want you to know one thing. He said, turn around. He said, look over there. You see that little girl right over there? That's my daughter, Linda. And I think she was 16.
Right.
And he said, Bobby, you're her favorite player. And then I said, well, that's nice to hear, Ronnie. I appreciate that very much. And he said, no, that's my daughter. I said, okay, I got you. And so he was in his own way kind of fathering Linda,
right?
And instructing me that, in case she makes some kind of stupid little girl comment on you or something, that it was just so tender and loving, and at the same time it was funny because he had that lightheartedness, Jeff, and he was such a joy.
Oh, he did, man. There's no doubt. You guys all had a lot of fun, man. Great personalities. Now, that team of yours, when you guys started to get in the thick of it, now we're going into August, are you feeling any pressure? Does the '69 thing come back in your face because the Mets are starting to play now? And here we go again?
Yeah, well, it was, we were all highly aware that, if we win this thing in Chicago, it'll be, Sarge kind of said it best. He said, look, whoever wins this thing here, they're gonna have statues around, okay? Mm-hmm. And of course we know Rhino statues being put together as we speak to add to the others, and that's what a great courtyard that is. So, we knew, we were like hyper aware that you could feel as the season developed and you couldn't get a ticket, the rooftop started growing and all that kind of was the beginnings of that, So I don't know how you could have missed it. And I was never bashful. I mean, I soaked it up until it was, until the first pitch started and then you went into that concentrated zone. But I was hyper aware of that too. I mean, it was pretty impressive just even going on the road. I mean, people would be waiting in every ballpark.
Right. Yeah. That whole season kind of grew. It's like almost everything's kind of blossomed. Here we go. Like you said, everything fills up, right? You're the talk of the town and the talk of the league because of the Cubs' history, right? And everyone knows about it. And here we go into the because you're still playing day baseball just as the '69 Cubs were playing day baseball. So you're out there every day. Right. Yeah. Bring that up.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Tell me about that.
Yeah. No, all that was true, and there's no better view, I tell people, than playing center field at Wrigley at 120 when it's full. And, you stand there and you look up in the rafters in the top rows, a bunch of silhouettes because of the shadows, and it's just one silhouette after another on the top row standing. And then every seat's full, and you look behind you, and there's those bleachers, and people with the barbecue grills and the lawn chairs are starting to appear on the roof. And you're saying, it was truly, and if you missed it, I feel sorry for you. It was something you should have taken a moment or two along the way and soaked up. And I did, and I always appreciated it. It was a real gift from God, and now I have the responsibility to do something with it, and that's how I looked at it. Just do it as fast as you can, as long as you can, and enjoy every moment.
Right. Yeah, when you're at that peak, when you know that everything is just working and the crowd, everything, every day is like you're just ready to go. There's no time to sit, right? You don't want to sit, right? You want to be out there every day because they talked about the Cubs in '69. They didn't sit the guys enough, DeRocher. But I mean, it got a little better in '84. You guys had some rest, but did you ever want to come out of the lineup?
Well, I gotta correct you a little bit. We still had that attitude handed down from that generation, your dads and the ones before. Right. That a big part of this was, trying to ascend to the level of being an everyday player, and that was the real goal. And then from there, being on a winning team, and so anyway, that was always part of the. So you felt that responsibility. You'd be dinged, and obviously I was in the dirt all the time. So I'm not the biggest mammal on the team, so I was dinged up a lot. And I wasn't coming out of that lineup, and so I played a lot, dinged up here and there. But you took that as a kind of a point of pride that you took in being that level of a player and that valuable to your team. So we had a lot of guys that that were that way. I mean, you looked around that lineup. We played 8 guys pretty much every day.
Yeah, you did. No doubt, because you remember them all, right? That's how you remember a team, right? Because you're out there all the time together at the starting 9 or the starting 8. Yeah,
they should have rested me more. I tell you, in today's world, they're a lot smarter with the players. They look after them a little. Their nutrition's better. It's a lot better. We were eating quarter pounders from McDonald's across the street.
Right.
These kids have chefs. Yeah, it's a whole different world.
Yeah, right. And you don't think it like you think, 69 was different than 84, but it was still pretty close together, right? 15 years, not much change. I mean, free agency changed. It was, but you still had that same team. You guys were part of the public. You were out there, not so closed off, like you said. You're getting quarter pounders and stuff across the street for after the game.
And what's cool? What's really cool about it? I feel like we're sitting in the locker room down in Mesa at Fantasy Camp talking. This is at the hotel Ollie Bar, at the Dobson. But there's some truth in that, because I remember in that era or that time frame 15 years ago, right? And we'd look back, wow, that seems like a long time ago. I was 12 and Woodstock and all that, right?
Right.
So anyway, so I thought that's a long time ago, but not so long ago. And then when they'd reflect and they'd say, it's been 39 years since the Cubs won 1945, and I think, wow, that's a long time ago. That's World War II, and now we're a long time ago. your dad's club 55 years ago. We're 40 years ago.
I know.
That's a long time ago,
Exactly.
So, yeah, so that's kind of how I tie the bow on that and think now it seems like, wow, time flies, It's like it goes by in a hurry. So enjoy every moment. And, I remember that December day when I heard that word in 2010, and Ronnie was only, he was only 70, and I'll be 70 in a couple, 2-3 years. And so I think you have to have that awareness and at the same time, that grateful feeling that you have that to reflect on. So, it's nothing but fond memories for me, even some of the, tougher times. And, you got to get through, have to persevere through some adversity along the way, but it's worth every minute.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, because 15 years at that time seems like a long time, but now reflecting, same thing. I'm 60 now. I go like, 40 years from your team, like, oh my God, I could just remember being in college, right? But that's a long time. And so 15 years wasn't that long of a time for the 84 Cubs to come around. You know what I mean? You're like, okay, we're still feeling the pain of 69. It's pretty fresh, and I don't think people realize that. And then I do remember that year when you guys won the division, and Oprah, remember Oprah was at AM Chicago, and she had all the 69 Cubs on the field.
Oh yeah, she interviewed me once with Sarge, and oh yeah, and back before Oprah was the big star,
Right.
And
right.
Chicago's very own, no doubt, yeah.
And I remember my dad, because when I was doing This Old Cub, we had the footage of that interview with Oprah and all the guys on the field right there down the left field line, Tess, Beck, my dad, Ernie, Billy, and Randy. And I remember looking at my dad and going, God, he looks bitter, angry. Like he still kind of had his arms folded, right? Like he was still like, you could still feel the pain from 69. And he's like,
oh, yeah.
he was, it was still there with him, and I think it was there all the way to the end, and he was so rooting for you guys. And that year, he was given the Miller Lite commercial. When you guys got in the playoffs, they took two guys, one from the Padres, Randy Jones, the pitcher, and my dad from the Cubs. And whoever got to the World Series, that was going to be the national commercial during the World Series, right? So we're like, Dad. He's like, he's finally, yeah, I'm going to get some record. You could just feel like he was so happy about it, proud about it. And when they were filming it, I think you guys were up 1 already at 13-0, and I remember Randy Jones like, oh, it looks like you're going to get the commercial, and he doesn't. Now let's get into all that, because, man, when you guys exploded, you let off what was that like, man? You're leading off the playoffs, you hit a home run.
Oh, yeah, well, it's the backyard piece. When you're 10, right, you're taking those at-bats with the wiffle ball or whatever, and you're like, okay, World Series, bottom of the ninth or whatever. Right, so I had that going for me, in my anxiousness. I only slept about an hour the night before, Jeff, in all truth. And I was so jacked, and so I couldn't sleep. And I remember just giving up about 4 a.m. and just flipping on the TV and just sitting there. And then about 6, I took a shower, and that kind of calmed me down. And I went back and laid in the bed until like 7:30. And I got up, and I felt like I slept for 9 hours. It was amazing. And I know I only shut my eyes for about an hour and a half. And I took off to the ballpark, and it was the feeling was watching the ballpark wake up to that morning. Oh my God, it was the crowd was unbelievable. Everybody was there so early. So we do BP and the whole thing and all the pomp and circumstance intros and all that. And of course, I'm leading off. I always wanted to be ready before they were, so to speak. The pitcher or whatever, I wanted to make sure I was on deck early, got all my stuff together. So I just remember walking up to the plate, and if there was an opportunity to have weak knees, it was there. But I had a real sense of calmness, and concentration was just really keen. And that's all I remember. It was just really quiet to me, although it was just nuts, And then I'm hunting that fastball, brother. So first pitch, he throws me a breaking ball at my left hip, and it stayed inside, and I took it. Kennedy wanted it, but it was inside, right? So now now it's with that 1-0 fastball coming. That was my sweet spot. So I was hunting it. The wind's blowing out. It was a little up, but I could get on top of a high fastball if I was anticipating it.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I hit it, Jeff, I can tell you this: I was the first one to clap, and on the way to first, and I knew I got it. And then as the place it went nuts, I'm coming around second, and the sound wave was hitting me on the way to third. And I'll always remember that moment of like, that is some loud stuff, brother, And of course, that jacked Sarge up, and then he left. And the next thing you knew, Sutcliffe, Say, and Sarge hit another one, and we just spanked them, handed them a can. Yeah.
Oh man, I just got chills. You telling me that story, man. I mean,
yeah, it's real.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's real. But once that first at bat's over, it becomes just steady Eddie, like any other, go to the next at bat. But each at bat was very important, obviously, at that point in the season. So you had a much keener. And then I thought, when I reflected back on it, I thought, why not? You know what? Can't I do that all the time?
Hey, man, you know what? You say that, though, but how many people do it at that time? You know what I mean? Think about it. My dad would have had just one day in a playoff to hit a home run, right? I mean, not even getting to a playoff game. I mean, and then to do it. I mean, that like you said, it's a wiffle ball moment, So
yeah, and having those moments in Cub history, because you get reminded, like you just did, and it shivers my back a little. It gives me, because I have that 10-year-old still in me, I think we all do. And so it jacks me a little bit to think about it. And at the same time, I think we expected to be successful because of all that. That's a residual of a lot of hard work and preparing for those moments. And then, I felt like I had been schooled well. I had been taught well. I had been coached or teammate wise. I'd been very fortunate to be around some of the best. And so I allowed that to leak on to me, and that did nothing but help, no doubt.
Yeah, man. And then, I mean, hey, I was in college, right? So I was actually playing ball at Miami, Ohio, and get out of fall ball to get to the game early to watch that game. We went nuts, man. You guys, I can't believe how much excitement you guys brought that year. It was amazing, man. And now we get to game 2. You guys win easily. Now you go to San Diego, and you're going to San Diego to play 3, which is unfortunate because you should have had home field advantage. Talk about that.
Oh God, that's gonna, and I can only touch on game 2 because it was fun. It was one of the funnest. I had one of the funnest plays I was ever a part of in game 2 in my whole career, and it was in the first inning, which I had a habit of doing. I reached on a single. I love to lead the game off with a hit. I had to be that guy to get the engine going. That was what I took the most pride in, that first at bat. So I reach, and now I'm patient because the lefty, Thurman, was on the mound. He had a pretty good move. So, I was concentrating on, I wanted to look like I'm running, but I'm not going to run until I really have a count in my favor. So anyway, we danced around. He tried to pick me off about a dozen times throughout Rhino's at bat. Finally, Rhino's, we get to 3-2. Now I'm going to go, but I'm going to make sure he goes home, and I'm going to get underway and then let Rhino do his magic. So I take off, and I peek back, and Rhino kind of topped it down the third base line. And it was a 2-hopper to Salazar, who was playing third. Nettles was out of the lineup because Trout was pitching. So I watched Salazar as I got toward near second, and I saw he wasn't peeking me. And I knew Garvey couldn't throw. We all knew he couldn't throw in the scouting report. He had an arm issue. So I came around second like, if he doesn't peak, I'm gone. And I just kept going. And I get into third safe now with 1 out, which is a key strategic move within the game. You want to try to get the third with 1 out to allow your hitter to score you without a hit. So I get there, and Don Simmer's just going nuts. And the crowd it was louder than when I hit the home run the day before because it was an exciting play and it was significant. So, and so I'll remember that moment as much as I do the home run the day before, because Sarge drove me in, of course, and we ended up winning 4-2 in a game where I scored a couple and had a different kind of game, and I wasn't known for power, but I was known for that. So game 2 kind of really, that was what stoked me. So we go to San Diego, you're right. And, it's like your boss, right? If your boss tells you, any fan listening, hey, this year, if you reach this goal, we're going to give you a $25,000 bonus. Okay, great.
Right.
So I go through my 12-month gig and I kill it and I earn the bonus. And then the boss comes up to you and says, well, I got some news for you. I'm sorry, but you're not going to get that bonus. And so immediately you got to feel a little bit wronged. And so that's how I sort of, when I think about that, I feel like we had the best record in the National League. We earned the home field advantage, but not for us. We earned it for our fans.
Yep.
We should have had 3 games in front of our fans, and I don't give a crap if we played at Comiskey or in Grant Park, but we should have played in Chicago in front of our fans. But back then, reality, Bob, television ruled. They paid the bills, and they said this is the way it's going to go, and there was nothing we could do about it. Well, we argued and fussed in Dallas, and Keith Moreland, I remember, went to bat for us and told them, well, then we're not going to play. And they said, well, then too bad for you.
Really?
If we can't play in Chicago, I mean, we got it, and because of the lights, right? Well, they got lights at Comiskey, so we gave them no excuse.
Yeah, well, they could play the day game on a week. Who cares? Everyone's going to watch it. Are you kidding me? I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, I know. So, am I mad about it? Well, I guess so.
Yeah,
but Sarge, I can tell you, Sarge hates it when I bring that up because he's right. He said we have no excuse. We should have won a game in San Diego or on the moon. Okay, and we should have won a game, and we didn't. So it is what it is. But I feel I like to stand up for the fans because they had every bit of a part of this as we did, and they had earned it as well. That year, I don't think anybody would have beat us at Wrigley if we'd have got to Detroit.
Yeah,
they might have won the World. They might have won the World Series because they'd had a 4 games to 3 home field advantage, and I'll give them that. But you're not going to convince me that somebody was going to beat us at Wrigley Field that year. It just wasn't going to happen.
Right. And you were going to Detroit and the Cubs would have been a great matchup that year. Everyone wanted that. You're right. And who knows what could have happened there? You guys are 2 sluggers. It's going to be a battle, right? And it's probably going to be home field, like you said, real home field advantage back then, those 2 stadiums. And yeah, that is a big deal, man. I always bring it up. The psychology of the game of baseball is huge, and I get what Sarge is saying. We should have won. You should have won one, but the psychology of baseball is everything. And I think if that psychology gets weakened and there's something in there that you feel, like you said, it's unfair. So now you're talking about that, right? Because that is wrong. This is how the game has gone. We should
you're taking back what you promised. I mean, I took it like that. Well, if I promise you something and then I take it back, that's just not right.
Right.
And so I stand on that. I'll die on that stake. But I get that, that's the real world, and sometimes it's business, and that's what happened.
I get it too, but people, when you're playing ball and the game, man, a little thing psychologically can screw you up. And it just happens, man, And so tell me about when you went to San Diego. How were you feeling in game 1 there?
Well, game 1, they got the lead. And see, we hadn't, we were that kind of team that once we got the lead, usually, especially with the pitchers we had, we were going to close the deal most of the time. So that game, I think they beat us 7-1. They got the lead on Eck. And boy, did he deserve to be one of those guys. I mean, we couldn't have had a better guy out there to get it done, close it out. And I was confident. But they got out on us, and Templeton had a game. Garvey killed us throughout the series, and so did Tony Gwynn. They had a good club, Jeff. They were better than people thought. I can tell you that. And then Goose coming out of the pen. So
right.
The game, we should have won 4 or 5, either one. We were, Jody got us back tied at 5. I remember being on third base in the 9th inning with 2 out.
Mm-hmm.
Penguin. We had the substitute umpires too, so the things were a little shaky there. And anyway,
right.
So we should have won game. Yeah, we should have really. I think we should have won game 4, and then we get to game 5. And we're up 3-0 in 6th. or 5th, and I think the 6th, and then things went a little haywire. But that's baseball, and it just to this day, I can't wait to gather with these guys later in the summer. We've lost a few guys, of course, but getting together again, I think is going to be a great thing for all of us, and I hope the fans enjoy part of that too in June.
Absolutely, they will, man. It's you guys are. I mean, you were one of the greatest teams, throughout our lifetime. And it was a special season, just as '69 was, right? And that season you remember because there was just such this good feeling. Just you couldn't wait to watch the game, right? And that's just a great feeling when you're a baseball fan, man. And getting to know the guys and knowing the personalities and how you guys played. How did you cover center field like you did? What's the magic of a center field? Because there's not many of them. Why is that?
Well, I think God put tiger paws on my feet, and so I mean that's how I felt about it. That was the one part of the game I knew I could dominate, was being quicker than everybody, and feet to eye coordination is very important in baseball. They talk hand to eye hitting a lot, but there's not a lot of chatter about feet to eye reaction ability, and being able to react quickly was what I had. I had that, whether it was stealing bases or ball off the bat, I'm on the way to get it. All that was a natural God-given talent, and I recognized it in the minor leagues. I knew I had that, and I thought, boy, I gotta wear this out. I don't even know what I'm doing yet, but I knew that I had to do that in order to stand out. So in that era, as well as I do, that try to make that starting lineup in Chicago in 1969 as a young guy, right? In Philadelphia in 1980, good luck.
Yeah.
You had to bring something special. Yeah. Or you're right. So that was the thinking, and nobody knew that better than Sandberg. I can tell you that. This guy brought everything to the table.
Right.
He had six tools because he was an All-American quarterback in high school, and an all-state point guard. This guy knew how to. He was an athlete. So we had a number of guys. I mean, we in our eras, we played a lot of different sports growing up. So you had some of that football agility or mentality, or you had basketball skills that could, playing great defense in basketball made me a better base stealer and center fielder. You had to have that, that balls to your feet and you're ready to make moves. At that level, everything happens so fast. So it's critical that you're on it. And that for me, that was a natural ability I think I had as a gift, from the good Lord. And I knew as a young guy, even growing up in the backyards, that, I was fast, I could outrun everybody.
Right.
So, it was freaky. And so,
you disappear real quick in a flash, you're gone.
Yeah. So, that was and everything else was hard work. I mean, hitting was the hardest thing to do in sports. And I had my trials with it, but when you're around great hitters, it's bound to leak off. And boy, did I have some of those guys, Jeff.
You did, the whole team, man. And you walked that year too. You were dialed in. And you talk about basketball, other sports. Yeah, my dad played 3 sports too. They did that back then, right? And getting back to like Kessinger talked about the basketball, when Kessinger did that hop in the, he'd take that ball in the hole and jump up and throw it without planning. He got that from basketball. It's like, him and Joey Malfitano figured out how he could do that. Best way to get rid of the ball the quickest was to just jump up, and throw it. So,
it's funny because I'd be in center. Here's one for the fans alike. If you want to hear some insight. So we're on the field in the game, and there's a ground ball up the middle, kind of a top spin piece to Sandberg's right. I'm coming in case it gets through, and he somehow gets to it, and I'll holler, screen left. And so it's like he's rolling right as a quarterback, and he throws back to his left, right on the money to Durham to, bang, bang out at first, and then we call it screen left.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great, man. I got to ask you.
But that was football stuff, that was his kind of,
Totally. And I want to get back to the playoff picture at the end there, but I want to ask, what is it about center fielder, though? What do you think it is that people just – is it the toughest position to play? I think it might be because you're looking directly at the ball. Like, to judge that ball coming right at you is very hard.
What is it
Well,
about center?
Because it's the biggest pasture makes it, one of the, toughest positions. Shortstop catching is the toughest. Shortstop's the most demanding, and then center field I think is in the conversation.
Yeah.
In that regard, I grew up as a shortstop, and then a lot of us do, and then we end up in other places. Rhino was the same way. He ended up at second.
Right.
So, yeah, so that wasn't unusual. But the real, because we talk about 116 years of Cubs baseball, really 1876 or so we're talking about a few centuries we could visit here. So in Cub history, and this wouldn't shock me, but now I'm old enough to say it, I was the first outfielder in Cubs history to be awarded a Gold Glove, right? And I knew that.
Wow.
And not until later, after I was done, I thought, really? And I thought, when I thought back, because I knew there were a lot of Gold Glove, Beckert and Hundley, and on and on and on, a bunch of them. And so I never thought about it till somebody brought it up. And then there's been, since then, Andre Dawson, Jason Hayward, who I think is just marvelous. And then, of course, Ian Happ jumped on board the last couple of years. So being a part of that little small fraternity of center fielder, being in the conversation, and, you were way too kind, but I like to be mentioned in the conversation of favorite Cub center fielders, no doubt. But when you talk about best ever, I don't know, man. I'll take Dexter, or
whatever. You're my favorite. Yeah. That's my opinion, man. So
I'm good. I'm good with it.
Yeah, so am I. Believe me, I'll say that till I'm not here anymore.
Andy Papko, Rick Monday, all those guys I got to meet.
I get it. But for a moment in time, I said moment in time, man. That moment in time in '84, man. No one ran out there like you did and got every ball that came his way, and just everything, just how you played the game, man. It was a true center fielder. And when I say about center field, because I have played every position, so I know that was the hardest position to play for me. I mean, yeah, catching is the toughest position because it's hard on your knees. There's no doubt. Every position is tough. But for some reason, it's just the way that ball would shoot out there and how you had to pick it up versus left and right. It was different, man. So,
for me, a lot of it was football because I love running down touchdown catches. Right. I could fly by that cornerback. And so for me, I looked at it when it was hit like a pass, and I got to run under it.
Right.
And so, so a lot of that backyard stuff, I mean, we would throw balls over houses, and one guy's in the backyard, one's in the front yard, and we're playing, the over the house game, and you got to find the ball, and then make a move. So all that stuff was part of that, that because I never played the outfield, bro. I was an infielder my whole life, and when they moved me out there, I felt like it was heaven immediately. It was like, thank God I'm out of that infield.
That's funny, man. I got to tell you, when we were at the camps, just seeing you at the camps, and you let me use your glove playing the outfield, that was awesome. I played with your Gold Glove. And then you had one glove.
I still got that glove. I still keep it handy. Oh, yeah. You better believe it.
You used one glove the whole year, right? That was it. Boom, that glove.
My whole career.
That's amazing,
yeah.
man.
Yeah, I used it for 11 of my 12 years that I played. It's like I always related it to. It's like a good girlfriend, Jeff. A wife. Why would I trade her? Or why would I get rid of my? That's my glove. I got to have it. So, yeah, I was so anal about it. I wouldn't pack it in the luggage. I'd put it in my briefcase on the plane.
That's classic. Oh my God, man!
I
how many times
did
you have to restitch that thing? How did it stay alive for so long?
No, it was alive throughout playing days. I did have a new face put on it when I was coaching.
Okay.
Because it kind of got worn out a little bit. Yeah. The Japanese guys with Mizuno took it in the truck and sewed it and kind of redid the face, but it's still got some rough spots. Oh. It's a lot like me in the mirror. The older you get, you're like your glove. It kind of wears out a little.
Yeah. Right, man. Hey, when I hit that glove, that was a nice. I mean, everything about it. It was beautiful. It just felt like, wow, this is a Gold Glove. Jesus Christ, so that was special to use. Thank you on that, man.
Now, let me ask you a question, if you don't mind, because you and Ronnie, I want to hear, because I got boys, and
Yeah.
And they're older now. I got grandsons and granddaughters, and my little 11-year-old grandson he thinks he's Ozzie Smith. Now he can play.
Oh,
and I love watching him. I watched him play this weekend, opening weekend, and he was 4 for 6 in 2 games, and had a real nice opening weekend. And so you guys growing up or whatever, like I asked my boys, I said, so you look around at all this stuff and all we've been gifted, whether it's a Gold Glove or it's a World Series ring the Cubs gave us in 2017, or is it a baseball that was signed by Stan Musial or what? All this stuff, I got all this stuff right over the years. I didn't hound it. It was just a lot of it was just opportunities, and not least of all, I've got a Ron Santo ball, a picture he signed for me, and all that stuff is there. And I said, so when you guys look at this stuff, so treat it like a draft pick. So I would make them say, what's the number 1 draft pick in here, guys? What do you like the most? Or what would be the 2nd round pick? Or what? So when you and Ronnie, you look around at all that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Like what stands out? What stands out to you guys?
I got to tell you, and beyond. Now I do have my dad's Gold Glove. I'm starting it right now in 1968, and I love his. I have his award, his Lou Gehrig Award he got, and because that's for character in the game.
Nice.
On the field and off the field, that's a special one to me. That might be number 1 just because I love that about character. And he had it. He loved the game. He was dedicated to it. At the end of the day, I would have to say the memories of hanging out in the clubhouse as a kid with my dad and my brother, going to spring training.
Yeah, there you go.
That's it, man.
That's priceless stuff, too. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the memories, man. It just brings me back to go remember that. God, I was fortunate, not even knowing it because I'm born into it, right? That I'm hanging in the clubhouse. I'm getting just sitting there. I may not know I'm taking it, but I'm taking it in. I'm taking in these guys' personalities. I'm taking in their character. It molded me and Ronnie to be who we became as people, good people, right? That's the first thing you want to be. So I look back at that now, being 60, going, that was it right there. I miss
That's good to hear.
Feeling around those guys and being protected, feeling like I'm in the right place. This is. I loved it. Now moving forward to play the game and not being able to do what your father did. That's more of a lifestyle. Meaning my dad came from nothing, so he had that mental edge. We had more. We had what he didn't have. So it's a different kind of. I got that edge later. I wish I had it earlier, but that's just how it goes. And it's just you get to understand that playing baseball, it's only a few can do it, man, right? And it just wasn't meant for me and Ronnie just because, I don't know. It just I feel like my dad's path was that. Was that your path too, always? Did you know you were going to be a ball player?
Well, and that's the greatest gift I can give is sort of paying it forward. And so I always tell the kids, and I'm around a couple of different Little League situations. I help out with a little town I grew up in with their Little League program. And then, of course, I'm out just being grandpa with my grandson. So I see and I soak up all of that because when I was young, my belief, I had a lot of grandmas and so on around me that said, hey, they say messed up stuff to me like, hey, you like to eat, don't you? I'd say, yeah, and they'd say, well, you're going to learn to cook. And, so, and then they would tell me, you believe in God? I said, yeah, I believe in God. Okay, good. You think dreams can come true? I said, yeah. It's okay. Well, then that's 2 of the 3 things you need. And the other one's hard work. So I took that sort of lesson along with me from the time I was young. And I tell the kids all the time, and when I'm around them, you have some faith, believe in God, and believe that dreams come true, and then go out and outwork people. And so, giving them some sense of, I don't know, I just think in today's world it's maybe more critical than ever. And my boys, I can tell you this, and your dad would probably say the same thing. But one of the favorite things I like to refer to is that my boys are all 3, and I have an adopted son, Michael, as well. And all of them are, first of all, they're great friends and great sons, but they're equally, if not even more so, great fathers. And they're above average husbands, which that's all we can ask for, right? Mm-hmm. Is to be an above average companion and so, but the best thing I can say is that they're all 3 great fathers, Jeff, and I'm so proud to say that.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, that's great. That's great. And, it's hard. My dad, playing the game like you guys did, it's tough to teach the mental strength, the stuff that you're talking about, like outwork people, even though I love the game, but I just feel like my dad was probably a little leery to say, okay, I'm going to teach them, we were around the game the whole time, so let them figure it out. Were you working with your kids early, or is it now you're working with the grandson?
Never pressured them at all. No, they like to play. My oldest son and my stepson both love to play. My adopted son, Michael, and Dustin, my oldest, you know them all. Mm-hmm. And they came to fantasy camp, Dustin and Michael, because they couldn't get enough even when they were, they were not quite. Matter of fact, Randy fudged the rules, and they were 29, and he had that rule you had to be 30, and it was like, and my adopted son Michael had just served 3 years, and he had a 9-month tour in Iraq, and I said, so what do you want? And when he come back, I said, what do you want? I said, this was on me. What do you want? And he said, Dad, I want to go to fantasy camp. And I said, wow, that's a good one. So I called Randy, and he made it happen. And you remember that was the first year that Eddie Vedder came.
Yeah.
And they told me, Dad, you don't get it, man. This guy is like the man, And I knew who he was, but I grew up in a little younger era or older era. So, but boy, what a cool thing that was for everybody, and still continued on past that, as you know. And the fans need to know, by the way, Jeff Sano could play a little bit too. Eddie Vedder was like an all-star shortstop in camp, right?
Yeah. Oh, and he went out and Ronnie, he loved your position too. Yeah, man. So.
And Ron Jr., he was a threat. He had power. So, baseball was a byproduct of those fantasy camps. The real joy was sitting around the room, the Ollie room at the Dobson Ranch, with your dad holding court on the front porch with Beckert and others. In those early, I remember those, and we would have most of the camp, if not all of it, gather after every day just to do what we're doing.
That's great. Yeah, this is awesome, man. No doubt. I got to go back here to end on the not winning, getting to the World Series in '84. What was that? How did you take that, man? Because I know how it felt for my dad in '69 not getting it. They didn't have a playoff round then. They just started that. That was the first year. They would have had a playoff round. But for the season before, he didn't have it. You had to win it to get to the World Series. What was that like, the agony? Because I would call it the agony of defeat, right? What was that like?
That's kind of weird. Yeah, that's kind of weird. The way we relate was in '84 we had a best-of-5 National League Championship Series still. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The next year in '85 they went to best-of-7. Now imagine if we come home to Wrigley down 3-2. The timing of things were weird like that. But yeah, that's the way it went. But I can remember this. Some things don't ever leave your brain, right? And I may not remember what I'm supposed to remember from 2 hours ago, but I can remember this. That Monday, we flew back in. Of course, we're still now. We got to pack up and get things moving toward the off season. So I remember waking up on Monday morning, and there was a frigging gloom over Chicago, like cloudy, colder, like a gloomy Monday, rainy. It's just really bad weather, and so. Mm-hmm. That blanket, I felt like that's what I felt like. That was a blanket. Now I got to go shake it off, And I think everybody felt that way. And yet there was a certain some level of accomplishment because we had battled so hard. And I was proud of every one of them, and proud to be a part of it. So there was, and then I think because it did take a bit of a monkey off, we had something to hang our hat on. And as you know, a lot of us have kept a lifelong relationship with the Chicago Cubs organization, one which I value greatly. I love coming up to Wrigley every year and doing stuff, and whether it's a convention or during the summer, it's still a great gift to me. And I as you know, whether it's fantasy camp or whatever, I soak it up because it's more than just an event or whatever. It's truly a reunion. And so I enjoy that kind of thing.
Yeah, you guys had a special team, man. Does that stay with you, though, Bob? Like you think, okay, how come you can't do it in '85? You just had the team, and sometimes it's just that magical year, right?
Yeah, well, we were off to a great start in '85. We were like 18 games over 500 after 50. and we were well on our way. We intended on certainly on winning it, and then I broke my foot, and I remember being in that hospital at Northwestern, and we proceeded to lose 13 games in a row. The whole pitching staff went down. Sut, Eck, Trout went down. And Sarge went down, and we just got destroyed.
That's it.
And
though,
that's
right?
baseball.
Yeah.
Yeah. Most of us get hurt. That's just the truth.
Yeah.
And the guys that don't, a lot of them are in the Hall of Fame, including your dad. And horses like Rhino and others, Lee Smith and Eck, and I mean, so it really it's a real marathon. And I can tell you, kiddo, I was not built for the marathon. I was built for the sprint. So 12 years felt like 50. I mean, I feel like I mentally I felt like I played, and certainly physically, a lot longer than most people expected. And me included, but I enjoyed every minute, and the coaching as well, and maybe this alumni stuff, the coming back as kind of the ambassador, right on the same shelf. It's still a great joy. And I love getting around the fans and the groups and reflecting, because I think they enjoy it as much as I do.
Yeah, no doubt, Bobby. And I got to say that year, when you have a magical season like that, like you said, no one gets hurt. There's something special about it, and that's why it's so hard to win a World Series.
And people like to talk about nation, like Red Sox Nation or whatever, or Cubs Nation, and they'll reflect. Well, and a lot of times you'll hear, well, what was the beginning? And they'll ask me, and they say, was it the '84 team? Was that the beginning of the Cub Nation, kind of, because now the ballpark's filled up and season tickets are hard to find, really from that point forward. But I tell them, no, when Cub Nation really started, it was 1969.
Yeah.
That was really when television era, WGN, blah, blah, blah. All of that really started in 69. I didn't know about the Cubs living in Kansas City.
Right.
If it wasn't for the game of the week. I remember getting to watch Saturday game of the week, and now they're at Wrigley, there's the Cubs. And then, so I was aware of being an American League city growing up, with the A's, and then the Royals came. I was hyper aware of the American League, but the National League was still a bit of a mystery. I had been to Dodger Stadium as a young kid. Dad took us on a Griswold trip out to Disneyland, so we got to go to Dodger Stadium. And I was like 12, that was really cool. And then other than that, I'd never been to, I had no real relationship with the National League until I saw a Cub game of the week. And so that hit me. And then I was into the Reds a little. They were winning I was in high school, and the Rose and Morgan teams and those great teams of bench and on. And they drafted me in 76 or 77. So they had just won back-to-back World Series championships. So now I was fully aware, and I kind of, was in tune with the whole thing. Because otherwise, I was a baseball card kid growing up. I had all that stuff in my bicycle spokes, and we collect them, and that was part of being a young, impressionable fan. Bert Campaneris was my favorite player growing up.
Oh yeah, yep.
And so anyway, there's. And I get that all the time. My brother and I were in the backyard. He was Sandberg. I was you, with the wiffle ball bat.
Right.
And so I love that, because I was that kid.
Yeah, no doubt, man. That's beautiful, man. And is Wrigley the greatest field you played in? Did you love it?
People ask me all the time, and without a doubt, not even close. Wrigley was obviously the man, and knowing that Gale Sayers even ran footballs out there. Stan Musial stood out there. Babe Ruth hit there.
Right.
I mean, come on, and Sano and Banks and Ernie and Billy and all that history. Yep. I soaked that up and took it as, well, yeah. First of all, I'm in awe, but second of all, because of the teammates I had, I belonged there, and I had something to do with. In particular, with Cubs history, and I'm just really grateful. And even today, it's like going back to your old gym. I can't wait to see it here in the next month or two.
No doubt, man. And I hope you have a painting of yourself out in center like you described, all the craziness of Wrigley being packed during the 84 season. Because, man, we loved watching you play, Bobby. The whole team. Loved the whole team. And then getting to know you guys and getting to know you, man, it's just been an honor. You guys were like a souped-up car, man, a hot rod. And every time it's like, what's going to happen?
Well, we had two. Remember, we had that gift. We could go out, like you could go to Murphy's after the game and talk to the fans like we're talking right now without any fear. I mean, you had no worries. You'd go out as a group, 4 or 5 of you, and you could hang with the fans you get to know. And so a lot of those people are my friends today still.
Yep.
The guys today, you know, Jeff, they just don't have that same opportunity like we did.
No, they don't. What do you think of the game today?
It's a different.
Last thing.
Yeah.
What do you think of the game today?
Yeah, it's a different world, but hey, man, I still love watching. I love watching wow, some of the plays they make, and I think it's harder to hit today than it was when we played. Some guys don't like to admit that. As far as playing the game overall, I think, you know, because they prepare they look at the work they do. Your dad and I would have said, what? I mean, I can come out of the trunk and get 2 hits. I don't need all this stuff.
Right.
You know,
spring training was when you got in shape. The off season was you rested. You did whatever.
Right. Well, we didn't have weight rooms, and that's what I'm kind of alluding to. All the preparation.
Yeah.
I mean, we basically could, like American Legion, Joe Madden used to call it. You know, you pull up in your car, you get in your trunk, you grab your stuff, and you go sit in the dugout, and you do a few stretches, and throw and go play.
There it is.
And that would drive kids nuts today because they have to have 100 swings or whatever they have to do. I think it's harder today, in my opinion, than it was when we played. It was just a different era, a different game plan, if you will. And we did plenty of work, but it was a whole different structure.
It was, but I get it. It's a different thing today, and it's still fun to watch the games, like you said, man. So.
Great players, and I certainly love watching them. I pay attention pretty close, obviously, to the local guys here, but I pay most attention to the Cubs, and I still, of course, I follow the Phillies. I stay connected with them. Had a great alumni weekend with them last August with a bunch of old teammates, and anyway, to me, it really comes full circle as you get older, and I think if nothing else, today's a great day to reflect and be grateful and thankful, and then if you want, grab a cold beer and watch some basketball.
There you go. And the Cubbies are coming on too later, man. So, Bobby, thank you so much for coming on, man. Can't thank you enough. So cool to talk to you, and I hope I get to see you this year. Maybe I will be out at Wrigley. I'm not sure. But enjoy the 40-year anniversary, man. You guys deserve it. What a special team. And it was just so great watching you guys play.
Well, really appreciate you having me on, number one. And then, keep that June 23rd weekend in mind. If you happen to be around, we'll all be up there that weekend.
Oh, wow.
It's going to be a special time. And say a prayer for our good buddy Rhino. He's battling through some tough stuff right now. And like you said, it's like yesterday, though, Jeff. Some things never change. You know, you get together, and in this case, on the phone. But it in a lot of ways, it's been too long. But it still feels like yesterday. And so keep up the good work and stay in touch.
Thanks, Bobby. I will, man. Thanks again, pal. All right.
All right. You're welcome. Good talking with you. Happy Easter.
Great talking with you, Bobby. You too, man. Happy Easter. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
This Santo moment is brought to you by Onesti Entertainment. 16 years after Ron Santo retired from baseball, WGN Radio called him up to be a broadcaster. Later, he would join the future Hall of Fame play-by-play man Pat Hughes, and together they would be known as the Pat and Ron Show, calling Cub games on WGN Radio for 15 seasons until Ron's passing in 2010. That Santoid was brought to you by Onesti Entertainment.
Crackerjack.
Thanks for calling Gino's
This
East.
call
This
is
Dana.
being
Can I help you?
recorded.
Yeah, it's Dan there. This is Peanuts, Popcorn, and Cracker Jack's podcast. How you doing today?
Hold on.
Dana.
This is Dan.
Dan.
Yes.
Jeff Santo, you are the crackerjack. I wanted to call directly to Gino's here.
Oh, wow, cool. Good to hear from you.
Did Dana answer the phone there? Because I wanted to talk to her.
Dana. Oh, okay. Well, I can get her, too, if you want. Oh, okay.
No, right now I'm going to talk to you.
No.
I'm going to talk to you. But I was trying to say, hey, Dana, it's Jeff Santo, but it was already being passed on to you. So,
she said
hey,
some
man.
guy with a podcast, so I figured it was you.
Hey, how about, I just talked to Bob Dernier today, and the 84
That's
Cubs.
Cool.
And, I was in for opening day the other day at your place, which Gino's East L.A. It's you got to go there if you're in L.A. You got to go there. But
and with opening day came the Chicago hot dogs for the season, too.
Right? How about that? Exactly.
Vienna all beef dogs, steamed buns, poppy seeds, all the trimmings.
You got the hot beef, the deep dish, the tavern.
Oh, yeah.
You got it all there, man. So the thing is, we were there. We went again to watch the game yesterday with Mark DiCarlo, and we had a group over there. And I was talking. I was telling him that I'm gonna talk to Bobby Dernier. And 84 Cubs for you or 69 Cubs? What was your team?
I would say the 84 Cubs, and it's not to say anything against the 69 team. I mean, those guys are like icons etched in stone. I mean, but at least for me, you're more of a kid, or I was at least at that point.
Right.
And these were like these grown-ups, they like up there with Mickey Mantle and Babe Ruth as far as I was concerned, And then in '84, those guys, I mean, at least felt like like they were like peers, guys who were like my age, and you could see, I go, you could see them playing baseball, and it was a magical season. I mean, I was there for the first game of the season. I had great seats right behind home plate, in front of the players' wives. It was great, and they went up against the Mets. Speaking of '69. And they just shellacked them. It was great.
Oh, wow, man. Yeah, right. What a season. I was talking to Bobby Dernier about that. And I got to tell you, I mean, because, I was in college. It's like you really remembered those guys. I thought they had a solid team all the way around,
Oh, yeah. It really gelled. And you had the old guys, Boa and Say.
Right? Yeah.
And then all the other guys were, kind of fresh,
Yeah, what a great mix, and just hearing him talk about that time and him hitting the first, when we got to the playoffs, him hitting the leadoff home run. I mean, how crazy was that? And he goes through it. It's amazing.
Oh, he does? Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And that was a great win. I mean, it made us cocky.
Right. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. And talk about the Gino's East in L.A. You and Todd, childhood friends, and you went to Northwestern, and you were a successful DJ for the Loop, Chicago radio, and Todd, a writer out here in Hollywood and TV. Talk about how you guys brought Gino's East to L.A.
Well, Todd and I have known each other since we were 14. We met at summer camp, and have stayed close all through the years. And we've always wanted to do something together. And then about 2016. He was in the midst of, he'd gone through everything from Everybody Loves Raymond to, According to Jim, to Suddenly Susan, to the season of Ellen, and I'd worked in radio for 40 years doing, programming and marketing and on the air. And I came out here because a friend was sick, and we got to talking, and, and radio isn't what it used to be. You had to do a bunch of stations. You have people who aren't even in the same city working on it. It just wasn't as much fun. And he was not having as much fun with, shorter seasons and all that kind of stuff. So he's been hauling pizzas back from Chicago, frozen from Gino's East for years. Southwest gives you the extra bag. So he goes and gets some dry ice, puts them in a box, and brought them out here. At that point, we said, well, it is a pizza desert out in L.A., and this is an opportunity. And so, we created something that we felt was very, very Chicago. And, we took, all our own memorabilia, he and I, and a lot of that's on the walls and stuff. But what's fun about it is it's like you're going into Chicago. And people come in and they go, I'm from Chicago, which they think is unique, but is really quite a few people who come in and they talk to other people from Chicago, and it's great. you guys come in. That's always fun. Get a lot of Second City people in. It's terrific.
It is terrific, and it's got a Chicago feel. And when you got, but that's a lot to take on. You guys did this. It's amazing. Did you contact Gino's, and how did that come to fruition? I mean,
they would have shut us down. Yeah. But I mean, it took a lot of convincing. It took a lot of convincing. I mean, they told us both, you have to stop doing what you're doing, radio and television, and it was fine. We were ready for that, and it's great. You're with your best friend doing stuff and planning it out and going through all that, and we opened, and it was like in Chicago, lines down the block, 2-hour waits, all that, and then all of a sudden COVID hit, and it slowed us down a little bit because we had to start doing more carry out and delivery. And, we built a place in back during that time, and, people came to that, and we had that up as long as the epidemic was happening. But then, people came back, and so, it's great. We had to talk to Gino's East, and we trained our staff there. It's the same recipes, it's the same ingredients. The hot dogs are, like I said, Vienna all beef. The Italian beef is from Chicago. It's Toronto bread. We make our own dough, we make our own sauce, all that kind of stuff. It's Wisconsin cheese because that's what tastes best on it, So, it's a collaboration with Chicago. We are a franchise, but, Todd has some connections with his cousins. Distant cousins actually own it now. And, they let us do our thing, which is nice.
It is nice, man, and I can't say enough about the place, man. I'm going to try and get there every Friday as I can. I hope this season, man, the Cubs have a decent season and we can start making, Gino's the place and the bar there, right?
I thought they were going to have a good season last season. No one would listen to me, and then they did, and then all of a sudden something went on, and then they choked. But I think this year they're much better positioned to make things happen.
I think
we got all the games on here. We got 12 screens.
Right.
It's terrific.
Yep. No, it's a great atmosphere, and it's just it's cool. It's like the dream that you guys did. I mean, it's childhood buddies owning a Gino's East in L.A. your own. I mean, it's pretty cool, man, and bringing the whole sports vibe from Chicago and football and baseball and basketball, and it's something else. And I commend you guys for doing that because that's hard work.
It's a great second act.
Yeah, really, right? Is it not?
Yeah.
And it's a dream. It's a dream. It's another dream come true, man. It's very cool to see, man. So
and we got named Best Pizza in L.A. by L.A. Times readers 2 years in a row. So, I mean, someone's liking it besides just the Chicago folks. So you don't have to like Chicago pizza to come in. But, our tavern-style thin crust is incredible, too. So, I mean, everybody should be here. I'd put us up against anybody in town.
No doubt about it, Dan. No doubt about it.
Yep.
Well, give Todd my best, man. Great talking. I'll see you in the next couple of weeks. And thanks so much for supporting Peanuts, Popcorn, and Cracker Jacks. You guys are the best.
Oh, we are so happy to do that. Thank you, Jeff, for making us a part of it. Take care.
Awesome, Dan. All right, talk to you soon. See you, pal.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to our show. Special thanks to our cool Cracker Jacks, Scott Nelson, Jim McCauley, Debbie Foley, Sherry Matarisi, Terry Rankin-Gurovitz, Terry O'Brien, Gary Tallman, Anne-Marie Pascule, and Jim Muschlegel.
This show is made possible because of all of them and all of our subscribers. If you want to support the show and be a cool Cracker Jack yourself, subscribe on our Patreon page, click the link below this episode, or go to the Patreon tab on our website, www.peanutspopcornandcrackerjacks.com.
Remember to click the follow button for the next episode. And please, please, please leave a review on Apple Podcast or Spotify. Please.
And don't hesitate to write. Give us suggestions. Tell us how you're liking the show. Email jeff.ppcpodcast@gmail.com.
For my closing quote, there are 3 things in my life which I really love: God, my family, and baseball. The only problem, once baseball season starts, I change the order around a bit. Al Gallagher.
Toodaloo.
SantoFilms.com, the place to buy This Old Cub DVDs, posters, and This Old Cub t-shirts. Get yourself one now at SantoFilms.com.